All right, now we're down to our very last two orders that I want you to know for the purposes of this class, the Lepidoptera and the Trichoptera. So Lepidoptera. This is another one of those orders that people know a lot about simply because they're pretty. Ask a lot of people, what's your favorite bug? And if they're not entomologists, they will say, oh, butterflies or beetles. Yeah. Those of you who start getting into entomology, you may find that other bugs are kind of cooler. I personally think, yeah, butterflies are pretty, it's fine, but they're also kind of boring. They don't do a lot. There are a few that I'll show you here that are amazing, but yeah, I mean, they're pretty, and that's what they do. I do have butterflies that are in display in my office, but for the most part, I'm not that interested in studying them because they just don't do a lot of really interesting things. Flies are much cooler, but I might be biased by that. But again, this is the butterfly or the moths. Lepidoptera. Their name comes from lepido, meaning scale, and ptera, meaning wings. This is because their wings are covered with flattened hairs that we call scales. So they are scaly winged organisms. They cover the wings and the bodies of most adults, and it's these scales that produce the distinctive color patterns that we associate with many butterflies and moths. Now, these color patterns play an important role in courtship and recognition. So these are all made by scales. Now, if you've ever picked up a butterfly or touched a butterfly wings, you know that dust that comes off on your fingers, those are the scales that have been removed from the wings. Neat. Now, this is the second largest order in the class Insecta, only second to the Coleopteran. We don't actually know if this is truly the second largest order out there, or if we just know way more about it simply because they're pretty and people really like butterflies and moths. That could very well be the thing. Some of these other orders out there might be even larger. We just don't really care about them. Who knows? Okay. Now, nearly all Lepidopteran larvae are called caterpillars. So you've probably seen caterpillars, you've probably picked up caterpillars. So they exhibit holometabolous metamorphosis. They go through an egg, a larvae, and a pupal stage before they reach the adult stage. Now, let's talk for a second about the difference between the common names. Butterflies and moths. You've heard people talk about this on a regular basis, and they are largely the same. There's no real scientific or metamorphic basis for the difference in the names. So there's nothing at least that holds true or holds fast with both of these. This is really a popular culture type of difference. So as a general rule, people call butterflies those flyy, pretty organisms that are out during the day, that tend to be brightly colored, and they have these little knobs or hooks at the tip of their antennae. So their antennae tend to be thin. Okay? They also tend to have more of a smooth body. Okay? And when at rest, their wings are held vertically over their abdomen or over their body. In contrast, people call things that are moths, they tend to be nocturnal. They're typically drab in appearance, or browns, or sort of boring coloration, maybe some gray. They either have thread-like or cone-like antennae. They have these plumose antennae there because they rely a lot on these pheromones and scent instead of sight. They also tend to have really large and furry bodies, and then when at rest, they hold their wings flat over their body or curled around the body. So that's just general rule. The reason, though, this isn't a scientific breakup is because you would find examples of butterflies that are dull colored and hold their wings flat and have furry bodies, and moths that hold their wings vertically. There's no genetic difference between the two. There's no real common morphological difference between the two groups, which is why they're not scientifically named differently. So it's just more of a popular culture type of thing, which we've kind of adopted, like, okay, butterflies and moths, those are the common names. And when we talk to the public about it, we can say moths, and they know that you're talking about those boring looking things that are found at night. You can say butterflies, they think pretty things. So that just gives us a way to talk to the general public. Now, most lepidopterans feed on nectar. So they have these siphoning mouthparts. So here they're siphoning mouthparts. These are actually made from lobes of the maxillae. They have all the rest of the mouthparts, the labrum, the mandibles, the labium, all those palps. But the maxillae, just one part of the maxillae, are super, super elongate. They fit together to form these siphons. Now, they use these mouthparts to feed on freely available nectar, usually, although we're seeing evolution in action here. There are some moths or butterflies, Lepidoptera, that will feed on body fluids. And what they've evolved this dentition at the end of their maxillae, the end of their proboscis here, that can actually do things like tickle the sclera or the eyes of a mammal. So in this case, these are moths, and their maxillae are extended, their proboscis is extended, and it's tickling the sclera, causing that animal to tear up, and they drink the tears. Creepy. This here is an owl moth. It has evolved even a little further. It uses this dentition to pierce into flesh and feed on blood. What's interesting about this thing is we're actively seeing evolution of this happen. So if you think about it, blood is a very, very protein-rich, nutrient-rich substance. So it would make sense that anything that can exploit blood will get a lot of nutrients for a little amount of effort. Compare that with just the sugar, the carb-rich nectar. There's not a lot of proteins or amino acids in nectar. So it takes a lot more time and effort to go and find those proteins in nectaries. But we know we're sort of in the middle of evolution here is because these owl moths, these blood-feeding moths, don't exclusively feed on blood, and they don't do it all the time. So sometimes if it's available, they'll pierce in, like this is an entomologist in the field going, yeah, feed on my thumb. And that's very exciting. This is what entomologists do in the field. We're weird. But yeah, so they do this. And they will feed on this blood fluid, but then they will go off and feed on nectar or tears or whatever else. So it may be that in a few million generations of this moth, we're going to see these organisms actually become blood feeders. Or maybe they won't. Maybe it just doesn't work out. So this is just really neat to watch.
Whether you choose to float like a butterfly or sting like a bee, you'll still get your chance to lap up the tasty tears of a choice crocodilian. That's what researcher Carlos de la Rosa noticed as both insects made their rounds to the spectacled caiman. Intriguing behavior is referred to as mud puddling and more commonly takes place on moist soil. But blood, sweat, and tears are also potential sources, allowing them to obtain some much-needed minerals and protein. The practice, of course, probably originates from the simple act of drinking water, but many butterflies and moths are capable of pumping excess fluid out their back end so that they may continue to extract nutrients such as sodium. Now the butterfly certainly benefits here, but I want to know about the caiman. Is this a mutualistic relationship or not? Throw out some ideas of how the reptile might be affected no matter how crazy or outlandish. I'll go ahead and propose maybe the butterfly acts as a giant eyebrow offering a bit of shade from the sun. Your guess is as good as mine. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and giddy up.
Okay, the final order we're going to be looking at are the Trichoptera. So the Trichoptera are commonly known as the caddis flies, or the, there's a couple of other things, but caddis flies, I guess, are the most common. Trichos means hair, while ptera means wings. So the Trichoptera have wings that are very hairy. They're just completely covered in hair all over the body. So these insects are common worldwide, and the larvae are aquatic, even though they are called larvae. So this is one of those interesting ones where it's aquatic larvae instead of naiads. Okay, so the larvae are aquatic and they're abundant in some cool freshwater habitats. In fact, this is the most diverse insect order whose members are exclusively aquatic. The larval stages are found in lakes and rivers and streams, and they are very, very important components of food webs. A few members in New Zealand and Australia have larvae that are adapted to marine environments, where the larvae actually live in tidal pools. So this is interesting because not a lot of insects will live or tolerate salt. Now, the larvae are interesting because they make casings out of whatever is in the environment. They use it as a form of protection. So they will get in the environment and they will use this glue in their spittle and create these little protective casings. So they use rocks or bits of detritus or whatever. The adults are less conspicuous. They look a lot like really boring moths. They occur most commonly alongside lakes or streams, and they are usually nocturnal, so they're attracted to lights at night. They look a lot like moths because Trichoptera are very closely related to Lepidoptera. During the day, the adults are going to hide in cool, moist environments such as vegetation along riverbanks. What is kind of neat about these things, and something that you can look into, is there's been some artists that actually use the caddisfly larvae to make jewelry.
Alors les trichoptères sont des insectes qui sont présents dans la plupart des rivières de la planète. C'est un insecte donc très fréquent et qui a la particularité de fabriquer un tube de protection avec des matériaux qu'il emprunte dans son milieu. Donc en général des cailloux, des petits morceaux de bois, des feuilles et parfois même des coquilles d'escargot. En me disant, je connais cet animal qui fabrique un tube artificiel avec des matériaux qu'il trouve autour de lui, et j'ai appris grâce à ses amis que l'or était présent dans la rivière. Donc je me suis dit, pourquoi pas? Est-ce que l'animal à la nature aurait le choix? Est-ce qu'il pourrait prendre de l'or? En tout cas, moi j'ai décidé dans une structure artificielle, dans une sorte de laboratoire, de lui donner cet or, et l'animal n'a pas eu d'autre choix que de confectionner son étui avec l'or, puisque je l'ai privé de tous les autres matériaux. Le travail avec les trichoptères est un travail de collaboration entre moi et les trichoptères. Disons que je crée les conditions favorables pour que les talents du trichoptère puissent éclore. Je crée les situations et je suis un peu comparable à l'architecte qui fait travailler les maçons. Comment les idées me viennent? Le problème, c'est que je ne sais pas comment elles viennent.
All right, so that ends our overview of the insect orders. So up next, we're going to start looking at some of these orders in real depth, those that are forensically important. You let me know if you have any questions.